Pretty sure.
Right. Just to introduce you to Jim, he's had a remarkable career as Chief Engineer of British Aerospace, and he's been retired some time and has gone completely free range and organic. And I know him through the Dowsing Research Group, and I've been a member of that for 15 years, and I will never ever forget the first conversation I had with Jim. And so without further ado, I'm just going to let Jim show you what he's up to.
Thank you. That's better.
Well, thanks very much, everybody. This is not a lecture, it is a workshop, okay? Which means that I want to show you a few things. We've only got a short period of time, and my interest at the moment is this whole thing that's been mentioned quite a bit this last weekend, the whole thing about consciousness, how does it fit into it? Mainstream science, as you know, says everything is consciousness in there, and it matches the outside world. In other words, it's inside out. Total and utter garbage. We are living in the ether, okay? Now I'm going to define what the ether is, and we haven't talked about somebody who I thoroughly respect in the 19th century who wrote a lot about it, Sir Oliver Lodge. And for those who know anything about British cars, knows he was responsible for designing the sparking plug for cars, among other things. Okay. You can find anything you want about that. So what I'm going to do now is really say how we integrate ourselves with the cosmos. Mainstream science has got severe problems, and we've heard all about it. The thing is, how do we tap into it? How do we measure consciousness? You go to a psychologist and you get a whole multitude of answers. Again, piles of garbage, okay? So how can we do this? Well, I unfortunately have two eyes which are not too good, never been very good all my life. But we all have three eyes, don't we? The third eye has been known in literature for a long, long time. And we have Indian friends, and we still have an Indian friend lady who paints that red. You're all very familiar with that. So why do they do this? Well, the first thing I want to say is that two eyes, number two, there, but three eyes when you do that. So if you all do that to yourselves, okay, and you find where it goes in at the top, you will find that this triangle which emerges is all over the cosmos. It is, in fact, to be pedantic about it, it's obviously greater than 90 degrees, and I'm going to tell you it's 109.471 degrees. And you're going to tell me, so what? Okay? But the interesting thing is that it's really 90 degrees plus 19.471, and those who can even vaguely remember what they learnt at school, 19.471, if you draw a triangle, the opposite 1 unit, the hypotenuse 3 units, that angle at the bottom is 19.471. It's 3. 1, 2, 3. The number 3. Okay? Now I'll say straight away, I've just been dowsing the Birkeland currents, which are associated with the fountain out there. This place is laid out on energy line systems. It's the grid pattern of not just this part of the world, it's the grid pattern of everywhere in the world. That whole thing about ancient sites is something that I've been very fond of since my mid-teenage years, when on a borrowed bicycle I went down from Amesbury and leant the bicycle against the sarsen stones at Stonehenge. And I was completely overwhelmed by this, and I've been overwhelmed ever since. And as a result of that, this has got me interested in how we, and how the ancients in general, tap into this universal field. This is a crucial part of mainstream science. And then from then on, what we have done is really investigated many other parts of the world. And I've in fact investigated ancient sites on 5 continents, from the Maoris in New Zealand to the Mayans, obviously here in Britain, of which there are a large number of places, even in Peru, all over the place. And there is a common underlying telluric current associated with the Earth. And associated with this are spiralling patterns which come out of the ground, and they are interacting with you and I. You can't get away from that. Okay. For those of you who've been to Stonehenge, you will know that it's got these so-called ditches around it. Okay? But in fact, these ditches are the bottom half of, if I can find all my bits and pieces here, this way. Bottom half of this thing that we've been talking about for so long, the toroid. Okay? And this shape is found absolutely everywhere. In fact, mathematically, it is the key topology in the whole structure of mathematics. Mathematics only has 3 topologies, or 3 shapes, to use the everyday word, which is, obviously, this for starters, the sphere, or rather the membrane, and the point particle, or naught dot naught. That's not particularly relevant to us, so we're really concentrating on membranes and rings, okay? So, where do we move from here? Well, I think that we can start to think about this whole thing about communication over long distances, because we know that the basic electromagnetic radiation which we've heard about is very, very limited. It's limited by the speed of light. But what we find is that everything in the universe is a spiral. And the whole damn universe is slinky toys.
Hooray!
Okay. Slinky toys.
He's working for Harrods or something, isn't he?
And when you get to that and a certain angle associated with the horizontal, when that becomes 36 degrees, that is the angle of the spiral in every single cell of DNA. You are totally linked in, I use the expression, the DNA of the cosmos. This is your fundamental connection. And the thing that we've been talking about, this whole thing about electromagnetic waves which do that, I am talking to you with longitudinal waves, and your sound is going backwards and forwards like this. But the key thing that hasn't even been mentioned, I've never heard it mentioned yet in the electric universe, apologies if I've missed it, but the real thing that you need to take account of is torsion. Twist. Torsion waves are the whole thing to do with transmission of information across the cosmos. And for those who studied this in detail, say that the speed of torsion waves is 10 to the power 39 times that of light. That's 10 with 39 noughts after it, times the speed of light. So for all intents and purposes, torsion waves mean here and there. They're both the same. Here is there.
Torsion waves in what?
In the ether,
Okay.
whatever we ultimately define the ether
Okay,
to be.
okay.
Okay? So, we can do one or two little experiments associated with this. I think Peter can help me with this. Can you, Peter? Where's my dowsing rods on? I've got them in my pocket. All I want you to do is hold that like that, and then when I tell you, twist it. You're not. Just hold it like that to start off with. Well, what we do, this creates an energy field, and in the static situation, it is a membrane shell around this, a bubble. The whole of the universe is bubbles coming together, and believe it or not, soap bubble theory applies to galaxies and God knows what of the universe. Dead simple it is. Can you hold it a long ways to me?
No.
Okay, that I'm going down here. Right? Just don't twist it yet. Okay? Now here is the membrane around it. I can go around in all directions. And then I'm going to go out a bit further. Okay? Oh, and there's a second shell. Okay? And there's a third shell. See you tomorrow. Cheers. Now you can see what I'm getting at here. Once you do that sort of thing, you create a whole stack of nested membranes. Okay? And then what I'm going to get Peter to do is, if I stand here, anywhere really, is just to give it a little twist, Peter. Yeah? And it's out here. Okay? And to untwist it again, I find the first shell there. And if you just dangle this, just swing it up and down like this. Just make it go. We'll just start off with that, okay? And it doesn't matter. Just hold it there. In that particular position, this shell is here. Now you dangle it up and down. And if you can see my rods, information. Information in my brain, okay? Now that sort of thing, that is how you transmit information across the cosmos.
Jim, can you just rotate? Let us see that.
Sorry?
We can't see the rods.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Just show it so the people behind you.
Sorry, behind me. Okay, so let me just come over here.
Thank you.
I'll go a bit further over here then, it doesn't really matter. Swing it up and down, Peter. Okay? Now I'm thinking about that thing going up and down. Okay?
Well, you're thinking about it, yeah.
And the mental processes are involving my pineal gland and the basic transmission through the cosmos, okay? And I'm saying from here to there is the cosmos. It's a bit of a small one, but nevertheless it's good enough. What I'm going to do now is see if I can just find, have I got my 50 pence piece? And I've got it here, like 20 pence piece. Sorry, I've got this one now. Now if I were to, I'll just put that down there. So I can ask for anybody. I ask for where Bristol is, for example, or something like that, or where north is, mag north, or true north. Okay, where the sun is. Okay, ask for anything. But if I put that on my pineal gland, oh my God, can't find anybody. Is there anybody here in this room? This pineal gland is of course a key gland of the whole of the chakra systems. Now those who, we've had a lot of mention about sort of ancient mythology and ideas in the past, religious ideas in the past. And this is part of the chakra system. And you've got 7 chakras, basically 7 chakras. The crown chakra, this one, this one, this one, this one. This is the Manipura chakra. This is the powerhouse, okay. Then you get this chakra down here, and in the rather delicate place, there's another one under there, okay. You've got 7. And this is going to bring me to the whole idea of numbers. So I'm going back to talk about numbers now, because you don't need Einstein's equations or anything like that. You need to be able to do precisely what you learnt in junior school, which is to count to 10. 5 there, altogether 10. But there's a slight variation on this, because we don't count in the ancient way from 1 to 10. We count from 0 to 9. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So if you have 0 to 9, the middle number there is 6. And what I want to tell you now is the key underlying mathematics associated with the organisation of the universe. And I've said before, I've pointed it out to you, it's on your faces, the numbers are 2 and 3, or 1, 2 and 3. Take 1, 2 and 3, add them together, 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6. 1 times 2 times 3, oh wow, that's 6. The 2 fundamental processes in which we manipulate information coincide at the number 6. And therefore 6 is pretty much an anchor number. But then if we look either side of 6, one less than that is 5, right? And the other greater than that is 7. 7 chakras, 5 fingers. You begin to see how the pattern starts to emerge. So if you multiply 6 by 2, you get to 12, and you do the same trick above it and below it, you get 11 and 13. These are prime numbers. That prime numbers means only divisible by themselves. So you go to 3 6 is 18, so you go 17, 19, just the same. Then you go to 24, 23 is the one below, 25 is the one above. Hang on a minute. 25 in itself is not a prime number. It consists of 2 prime numbers. Okay, 5 times 5. The key thing about the whole of mathematics, what I've explained to you there, is the most intensely studied problem in mathematics for thousands of years, and it has still not been, a solution has still not been found to the distribution of prime numbers along a number line. But it's absolutely key to the organisation of the universe. And it all comes back to how we relate all these shells together. And all of this is, believe it or not, related to music. The key numbers there are 2 and 3. And I've said before, 3 is the underlying, well, the number of the underlying structure of the cosmos. 2 is the manifested number, the manifested world. And it's the link between these two things which are absolutely vital. And it's the ratio between these two things which are vital. Now 2 over 3 gives the number 0.666. That's an interesting number, isn't it? You know quite a bit about 0.666. It's in the Bible and God knows what, okay? So all of what I'm telling you is not new. It's all there. It's a matter of how you look at it and how you interpret the whole scenario. But then we look at these numbers 2 and 3 and say, hang on a minute, where did they come from? Well, you've got to go back at least to 300 BC. So the first thing you're going to ask me is what happened in 300 BC? Well, it's all about Mr. Pythagoras, because he was the first one to put down the harmonics of the diatonic scale. And this particular scale, by its very underlying name, has a series of octaves associated with it. And no doubt many of you here have played the piano or learnt it when you were younger, or know people who played. I thankfully gave it up when I was young because the world would be far better without me playing the piano. But the important thing about the piano is that it's got 8 white notes, hence the name octave, and 5 black notes. Now just take the ratio of these numbers. 8 divided by 5 is very near that number which we've all heard about, the golden ratio. The real number is 1.618, and it's all to do with this thing called Fibonacci series. And the layout of the piano keyboard is really the Fibonacci series. So it's all essentially there for you. And the other things that we ought to do is to understand ratios associated with it. And if you go from middle C up to A, major 6th, then in the old days, that 6th, and then number 6 again, had the frequency of 432 cycles per second. Very important. 432. These days it is 440 cycles a second, due to a typical international conference in London in 1953, but they got everybody on the planet to come together and they couldn't agree on exactly how we should really tune orchestras. But they went for 440 then, but go back to 432 because Mr. Vivaldi wrote 500 concertos based on 432. Il Signor Verdi was most pedantic about 432 for his mezzo-sopranos and his sopranos. 432 being the breaking point. And, believe it or not, Mr. Heisenberg, we won't go into quantum physics in detail, but his fine structure constant, which is all to do with electrons going around the atom, if you divide that by pi, it is near as damn 136, okay? And that number appears absolutely everywhere, again, in the whole of physics. I've done some corrections to, he wasn't quite right with his numbers, and there's a small correction which we could deal with later, but it doesn't really matter. So, the whole of music really has a lot built into it. It's got the harmonics of the cosmos. And the 3/2 is part of the whole of Pythagoras' idea of creating a whole harmonic range of numbers. And obviously if you go from 2 to 256 and go up the octave, you end up with 512. But if you do 12 semitones, then the number you should use is 12 related to 3/2, and there's a small error associated in it. It's not 136, it's 137.036. So this gets back to discussions that have been going on today. And I think Mr. Pythagoras was the first one to invent fractal geometry. So all of these numbers can be related to fractals. So where do we go from here? Well, I think we really should start to see how this really fits into other scenarios and talk about other relationships in physics. And what I think I'd like you to do is, if you've got your mobile phones in your back pocket and you pick them out, or at least you know what they are, make sure they don't go off, and you at least just think about the keyboard. The keyboard is the most important thing. And you go across the top and it goes 1, 2, 3 on the first line, 4, 5, 6 on the second line, 7, 8, 9, and the naught is below. Okay?
Yeah, might do that.
1 plus 2 plus 3 is, you look down for the next number, 6, and 1 times 2 times 3 is 6, and then you look down the right column and it gives you 3, 6, 9, and these are the key numbers of the universe, number 6 being the anchor point. And if you start looking at corners, first one is 1, then you go across there, then it goes to 3, and then you go the bottom left hand corner and it goes 7, 137. You have essentially Heisenberg's fine structure constant number on your mobile phone. I bet nobody knew that. So you can begin to see how all these numbers start to link together in rather a dramatic way. And I think we can now really...
3 or 4 minutes?
Sorry?
3 or 4 minutes?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, just to wrap it up then, I will just do one other thing, one other test, because the other key thing that's around is all to do with, we talked about pyramids in the past. I'm doing a conical pyramid here, and this is just a piece of aluminium like this. I turn it around like that. Okay, just turn it around like that. Hey presto, I've got myself a pyramid. Okay, like that. The key thing is that when the top half angle is 36 degrees, the DNA angle, that makes the bottom angle 54 degrees, you get 2 little balls of energy, one above it and one in there, which are the same size. And if you then make it steeper, make it up to about the next one, 63 degrees, you can use this for healing your arthritis or anything like that. But I'll just show you one little trick that we've played around with. Because mainstream science doesn't believe anything because they can't measure it. But Peter knows that I snore most terribly. But I'm going to do is gone, snoring gone for 8 hours, okay? Shall I paint it? So you begin to see, what I'm getting at is all of these numbers and the angles of pyramids the relationship of numbers in the atomic table, which I really haven't had a chance to go into at all, how silicon dioxide morphs to calcium carbonate, which is a very well-known one, because that's the same thing that happens at Stonehenge. The first rings are calcium carbonate, the rings outside are from Preseli, and they're all quartz. Okay, so our forefathers knew all about this relationship between all of these numbers, at least perhaps not the way that we do, but at least in a completely logical fashion. So we have here an idea of talking about the harmonic cosmos, and this modular 9 number system applied to the whole of the cosmos dramatically simplifies things, allows kids of 12 to 15 to play around with it ad infinitum and get a better understanding of it. You do not need new solutions to Einstein's equation. Einstein's equation, he threw them out, by the way, in his later life. He straightened out his curved space, and Mr. Hawking got rid of his black holes. He decided they were grey. Okay? And this dowsing process, which I really haven't had much time to go into, means that I can now start to dowse photographs of things, of the cosmos, because what we have discovered is that the information associated with spinning objects, is buried in the photograph. So if NASA produce a wonderful picture of something or other, you can measure all the energy coming out. And just to finish for you, I can tell you that these things that we've been talking about these spirals, and these numbers we're talking about are all built in to that pattern outside there. This whole establishment is built on a circular scenario with lines going through it and the Birkeland currents going across ways like that. You have Birkeland currents outside there in the ground at 5 feet, thereabouts below the ground. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Does anybody want to ask any questions?
Yeah,
Wow.
Right. Yeah, Andrew.
what you talked about was brilliant. Thank you. Could you say something about the fact that primes, you can't really divide them except by themselves in one?
Say that again?
You can't form harmonics very easily except for the very smallest primes like 3.
I didn't really understand the question. Can you repeat it, please?
Prime numbers can only be divisible by themselves
Yeah,
in one,
yeah.
so you can't form harmonics below them. I just wondered if you had any comment on how that affects nature, or does it, from your standpoint?
Well, I'm not so sure I can comment on that. All I can say is that these structures are out there, and one can treat the individual crossover points of all of these energy line systems and spirals coming up. And if you pay attention to those individual columns of energy, which I haven't really talked about, then just picking up on these points and treating these points there will improve the whole of the area quite dramatically. There's a vast amount we can do with very simplified technology on the understanding of the world grid.
Over here.
Jim?
You talked about, when you brought out your little slinky and you said that the whole cosmos is your series of slinkies connecting. Can you dowse the cosmos, or can you dowse the node points that are connecting? So if you're looking to find out which, like let's say Venus is connected to Earth with this Birkeland current, can you dowse to find out where that connection would be here on Earth?
We can have a go at it. I really haven't talked about the solar system because I think we need to modify Kepler's laws as well, because the planets, or the orbits of Kepler and all the rest of it, we are effectively, the Earth's going around in a tube. And it's not really Kepler's two-dimensional view of the world, it's a three-dimensional view of the world. Okay. Where you've got a ring like this, you see, with one winding like this, and the Earth is going round inside, and when it gets to where it's going on the inside, the Earth is at its nearest to the Sun, and when it gets to the other side, it's furthest away. And by getting these dimensions right for the thickness of the toroid in which it floats, then you can really get a complete new model of the solar system. And things like, well, I should have mentioned that, well, we're talking about planets, but if we talk about Mercury, it's got some very interesting relationships. For every twice it goes round the Sun, it spins on its own axis 3 times. So there's your number 3/2. And when you talked about other things beyond Saturn, it's really Uranus, for example, doesn't spin like this, it lies on its side and goes around spinning like that. It's 90 degrees. And this whole thing about rotation of the angular position of the spin axis is absolutely critical. And of course the spin axis of the tilt of the Earth dictates our seasons and everything, but we won't go into any of that at the moment. So that's the sort of thing. And I really didn't get time, I just have one last thing, I didn't really get time to talk about, beyond the 2 numbers that we're used to, pi, obviously it's to do with the circle, and phi, which is all to do with the ratio there. There's this other number which is absolutely vital and totally ignored by mainstream science. That is Feigenbaum's number, which you may or may not have heard of, delta, which is 4.669. And that whole process is the process we need to go from chaos to order. The general way it's presented is from order to chaos, but I've turned the mathematics the other way around and done it from chaos to order and fitted it to our solar system, at least from the Sun to Saturn. Remember those two were fighting one another in the early days. And the distribution of the planets to a first order fits this Feigenbaum's series of bifurcations extremely well. So 3 numbers for the description of the universe: phi, pi and delta. So it's all in the literature, but we're trying to put all this lot together. We're starting on another book, and John Martineau, who presented to us 2 or 3 nights ago, John's a very good friend of mine, and he's a book publisher. He wrote the foreword to the book that we've just written, which is on all to do with the crop circle scenario, which Rupert Sheldrake was very keen for me to get involved in. And in fact we have a session this weekend on crop circles, because we do a lot of work for healing various people in crop circles, particularly Parkinson's disease. And I find areas with spiralling currents like that, we put people on those currents for quite a long period of time, well, half an hour or something like that, and we get dramatic changes in their hormones by standing on these places. We've learned quite a lot over the years. The medical profession is profoundly interested, but they're clear real interest. You know why, okay? And Rupert Sheldrake, my very good friend Rupert, is a very great supporter of all of this sort of work. So there's a lot of stuff now starting to come together on what I call the middle ground. This bit that's been like this hitherto in the electric universe, we've now got it looking like that. Okay? And I think this approach will certainly take us a long way further forward. Leave that?
Great. Nice. Right, do you want to pack up all the stuff?
Yeah, pack on this.
Do you want to ask a question?
About the Stonehenge.
Oh, yeah.
About the quality of the blocks. Which ring? The inner ring is in caulk, and the outer ring in granite.
No,
Crystallized one out.
in essence, it's really chalk on the centre one, in essence.
Yeah.
And the outer one is really quartz,
Yeah.
silicon dioxide.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
And the number of rings, Aubrey rings, there are 56 rings, and you divide by 2, you get 28. And the 28 is a very key number. We're looking for this 28 cycles a second in the brain at the moment, because that's very, very crucial. And it's all to do with this whole thing about the speed of light around the Earth. 7.84 cycles.
28 is a perfect
27
number.
cycles on the Moon, and this sort of thing.
28 is also a perfect number on the normal definition of perfect.
With America, he's going to.
All right.
Guys, we have to stop this short. I'm sorry, because Phil is going to now set up for a Skype contact with Don Scott in America. So if you want to go and get some fresh air and come back in a minute.